Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mitch Silber, the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Security Initiative, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for a special briefing on security implications for the war versus Iran. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of our agenda today because we're going to cover a lot of ground, and then we will get right into it. And these sessions will be led by different members from the CSI team. I'm going to kick things off with our first guest, Dr. Matt Levitt. And I'll just put Matt's bio up here for just to familiarize yourself with him. Matt comes from the Washington Institute, where he's the senior fellow and director of the Reinhardt program on counterterrorism. He teaches at Georgetown and Pepperdine, and literally has written the book on Hezbollah as well as Hamas. And you can see on the right side two articles that Matt has written within the last few years, one for CTC Sentinel, talking about Tehran's homeland option, terror options for Iran and the United States, as well as an article about Hezbollah and their presence in New York, as well as outside the Middle East. Besides Matt's background at the Washington Institute, from 2005 to 2007, he was a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intelligence and Analysis at the Department of Treasury, and previously he served as a counterterrorism intelligence analyst at the FBI, where he was one of the people investigating the 9/11 attacks when they occurred. So with that, let me jump in here, and Matt, and we'll talk about some of the issues that I think are relevant to our community today. First off, let's talk about the homeland option. You've written about Tehran having this pathway for striking inside the United States. In the wake of the U.S. and Israeli military actions, do you think that we are now in a different threat phase? Have we crossed that line? Is there a higher likelihood of Iranian or proxy activity happening in the U.S.?
Mitch, thanks for having me. And let me just say thank you to everybody who's on this call, everybody who's doing their part to protect the Jewish community. I literally got off my own synagogue's security committee Zoom to join you here. These are tough times. Thanks for everything that you do. Look, I don't think we need to be hysterical, but I do think that the threat is higher than it has been. In 2016, right before he was arrested, a Lebanese Hezbollah guy, it's a long story why he decided to sit down and talk to the FBI. He thought he was going to get something out of it. He didn't, but he talked to the FBI before he gets arrested, tried and convicted. He was convicted in New York, and he's doing many years in jail now. But he was asked by the FBI what he was doing. He talks about all the pre-operational surveillance activities he did in New York and elsewhere. He describes himself as a sleeper cell. I don't like the term, it's too Hollywood, but he describes himself as a sleeper cell. The FBI asks him, so under what conditions do you think you might be called upon by Hezbollah or Iran to act on all of the pre-operational surveillance that you've done? And he said, well, maybe this, maybe that, but definitely if the United States ever went to war with Iran. And he didn't even have to say, and he didn't say, if the supreme leader was killed. We've crossed all those Rubicons. Iran doesn't have a whole lot of ways that it can respond. It seems that U.S. and Israeli forces have done a lot of damage to the remaining air defenses and to a lot of the launchers, which will be critical to deny Iran the ability to fire too many ballistic missiles at Israel, because both Israel and the United States do not have endless supply of interceptors. And that leaves them with foreign terrorist operations. The good news is that the Israelis and Americans have also hit a variety of Revolutionary Guard and intelligence facilities and killed a significant number of people who would be the ones likely overseeing such operations. But in the real world, you dispatch people abroad, they don't need to be told every step of what to do. And someone who fills in behind them could say, just activate everybody. After the 12-day war, the FBI pulled people from immigration, counterterrorism officers who'd been moved to immigration, moved people back. This is even more so because now, this time around, not just Israel, but the United States is saying that one of the goals may well be complete regime change. And of course, we killed the supreme leader. And so you're getting to a point where Iran may feel the remaining revolutionary leaders, they have nothing to lose. And so that's the concern.
Great. Thank you. Um, Talk about, capability versus intent, and you kind of alluded to this, that there may be less capability here in the US as well as capability back in Iran to potentially mastermind something like that. Would you say that you're, concerned with one more than the other in the equation?
Look, I think we don't know exactly where the intent is because if they believe that they can survive this, they probably don't want to blow something up in New York and really paint themselves as the terrorist regime we keep saying they are because they are. Um, but there are two problems here. One is, as I said, we've done a lot of things that people never thought we'd do. For at least many in the regime, the intent is there, period. Second, the downside to the incredible disruption that happens when you take people out is that the command and control isn't there. And so you're left with lower level people who may just do things on their own. And so it's difficult to know kind of what kind of controls there may be on these types of things. And finally, if you're an operative, an Iranian operative or a terrorist proxy or a criminal proxy who's been sent to the United States to consider doing something, and you're not hearing from your handlers and you're seeing everything that's happening over there, the concern is someone does something on their own. And finally, short of anybody getting any instruction from Iran, we're concerned about lone offenders. There are beginning to things coming out suggesting that maybe it's a big maybe, but maybe the shooter in Austin was inspired by something related to Iran. He was wearing a sweatshirt that said something about Islam. He purportedly had a t-shirt about Iran underneath it. We don't know, but it is possible that you'll get lone offenders who will see the supreme leader of Iran as a great spiritual leader of Muslims and America and Israel as people who killed him, and therefore they need to do something. And that's the other thing we're concerned about.
For sure. And you've made a point in your research, to analyze both Iran's external operations capabilities and also Hezbollah. So far Hezbollah has stayed out of the war. What about their capacity and intent? Do you think the fact that they stay out of war in southern Lebanon means that they're less likely to do anything here in the homeland?
Not necessarily. In fact, at a certain level, because they are so deterred from doing anything across the blue line with Israel, because they understand, and I spoke to some people, officials today who made it clear that both Israel and the United States have communicated to people in Lebanon to communicate to Hezbollah exactly what the Israelis will do to them if they so much as throw a rock over that border. But they've always said that, if it came down to an existential threat to Iran, they'd act, and I believe them. Look at it this way. The groups that coalesced into what became Hamas, they existed before Iran. And if the regime were to end, Hamas would still exist. There was no Hezbollah before Iran, and there basically won't be a Hezbollah should there not be an Iran. So an existential threat for the revolutionary regime in Iran is kind of an existential threat for Hezbollah. And you could see people in Hezbollah wanting to do something, feeling they can't do something on the ground against Israel, so you do something with what they'd consider to be reasonable deniability abroad. Again, because of all the things that Israel has done to their command and control, we also have the concern about people operating semi on their own, a little bit rogue. There have been instances like that in the past. Um, the biggest concern is that people get so angry because there are, for those people who are true believers and really saw the supreme leader of Iran as the mouthpiece of God on earth, and there were people who believed in Waliyat al-Faqih, the rule of the jurisprudent. The concern is that they, as a group, as a small cell, as an individual, may decide to do things on their own.
And that kind of answers the question about, lone actor or directed plot. Let me touch on the topic that, most of our participants are very interested in, and that is, the Jewish community as a target set. And I'll preface it with the fact that CSI has been in touch with the NYPD, with Nassau, Suffolk, with Westchester, Hudson Valley, Connecticut law enforcement, as well as the FBI. And so far, everyone has said, things are quiet. But Matt, historically Iranian linked operations have targeted Jewish or Israeli interests, which, as we've discussed many times, are actually, different. Do you think Jewish institutions or Israeli locations in the U.S. are part of the Iranian calculus in some type of response, or is it directed at U.S. government entities?
Not mutually exclusive, and sometimes it has to do with the specific targets that they want to hit, and they will go for specific targets, even in sensitive times and places. And sometimes it has to do with wanting to do something at a specific time. And that's the concern we have now. If the Iranians, suffering huge assaults at home, feel that now is the time to do something, then hitting something soft may be more important to them than hitting something significant. I think we have a good reason to be concerned over the Purim holiday. There's a tremendous amount of activity that happens, a lot of people out and about, people wearing masks. The symbolism of something in the Jewish calendar happening with evil people in Persia notwithstanding, I think we need to get past Purim first, and then we can talk about kind of regular life after, leading up until Passover. My concern is that Iranians or Iranian supporters or like-minded followers are going to feel the need to do something quick now to show that Iran still has capabilities, that there's a cost to, going to war with Iran and killing the supreme leader.
Right, right. And in terms of the methodologies or the pathways they might go, one of the things that your studies and research have highlighted is that Iran often their MO, their modus operandi, is to find some type of criminal network,
Yeah.
whether it's Hell's Angels or some other type of transnational criminal group, and use them to do their dirty work so that they have plausible deniability. Is that something you still think is on the radar here?
Yeah, it's been more so in Europe with the organized criminal groups and bringing Eastern Europeans here to carry out assassinations or abductions of Iranian dissidents. We have had cases maybe decade and a half ago where actual Iranians were doing surveillance mostly of dissident rallies, but while they were in the country going back and forth from one coast to the other, they stopped in Chicago and did surveillance of Jewish institutions at the University of Chicago, the Chabad and the Hillel.
Right.
Um, we have cases going on right now. There's one going on in Eastern District of New York and Brooklyn of an individual is accused of trying to hire hitmen to kill senior officials, possibly to include President Trump. And there are other people who are soon to go on trial for those types of hitman cases. That could be something. It's also possible that because they want something to happen right now, they try and do something themselves. They also sometimes reach out to organized criminals or low-level criminals who have no idea they're working for the Iranians to do various things, and that's a possibility too. Um, Again, my biggest concern in the moment is individuals who will be much harder for us to spot and know about in advance. Could be people who are not on law enforcement radar at all and are just overwhelmed by the sense that Israel and the United States are targeting someone they consider to be their religious leader.
Right. Kind of lone actors who spontaneously combust in a sense,
Yeah.
decide to do something. Um, well, last question. I think this is really relevant and leads us into the presentations. What should our communities be on the look for? What are the pre-incident indicators that you've seen, when you've evaluated these plots or attempted plots? Any tells that, security should be on the lookout for at our schools, shuls, and JCCs?
Nothing that you all don't know already and that you're not going to talk about in the next presentations. I will just say that, pre-operational surveillance probably isn't going to happen for someone who just gets angry in the moment. And so an identifiable target and somewhat easy to access, somewhat soft. This is why I'm so concerned about all the Purim celebrations. Would be my biggest concern. And so there, having people, both armed and unarmed, who are able to be there and show a presence, not only at the door of the school or the synagogue or what have you, but a little farther out too. I think makes a very big difference. Most of these people are not going to be skilled or trained. And if they're not sure that they're going to be able to get to their targets, they may move on to something else.
Great. Well, thanks, Matt. That's really appreciate you joining us today. Great insight on this kind of fast-moving set of news incidents that feel momentous, and hopefully we can check back in with you as this conflict evolves.
Anytime. I'm really grateful to CSI for all the work you do and for everybody who's participating on the call. Mitch, everybody, thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
So now we're going to move on to the next part of our session today, and we're going to be talking about communications. And obviously, one of the things we're most concerned about is making sure that you, as institutions, are in contact with CSI and in law enforcement. So I'm going to turn that over to Terry Byrne, our Manhattan Senior Regional Security Director. Terry?
I'm going to talk about communications real quick. We have a lot to get through. Thanks for joining us today on a Sunday afternoon, evening. But we felt it was important to do this today. Purim coming up and everything like was pointed out already. Yeah, I'm going to talk about communications, but first I want to note real quick about situational awareness. What I don't want you to be over the next few days is what you see in this picture here. I mean, just for safety alone, if your head is up in a place it shouldn't be, or let's say in the cloud, and you're buried in your phone, you're just not going to notice what's going on around you. And you won't be prepared to make that call if you see something and say something because you're not going to see it. Matt just talked about pre-operational surveillance, sort of Mitch mentioned it. You're just not going to see that if you're walking around like this guy. Where I really want you to be is these are the different levels of situational awareness. It has to do with your heart rate and all of that, what's going on around you, but at least be in that yellow zone where you're a little bit hyped up a little bit. I don't want you to be in a position where you're like going crazy with this stuff, but pay attention to what's going on around you. Why? Because we want you to notice what's going on around you. We talked about pre-operational surveillance. We also talked about people acting out. If you see something, say something, please. Um, if there is an emergency, of course, you're going to call 911, right? But sometimes, let's say you have somebody puts a swastika on the door of the synagogue. Is that an emergency? No, you probably still call 911. It's just the way NYPD works. You want to get somebody there to take a report. But if it's something that is a threat, something that you're concerned with, you can also call the 188 New York City safe number. And there's another number for New York State. If you're in New York State, it's 1-886 SAFE New York State. That's if you're outside of the 5 boroughs covered by NYPD. And what do I mean by suspicious activity? Well, if you look at the next slide here, some of these things may not apply. Aviation activity, you're not going to see that on the ground, but you might see somebody doing surveillance, right? You may get somebody who comes up and is testing. Maybe they're probing. Maybe they're asking questions of your security. So if you see something like that, call 911 if appropriate. If not, you can call one of those other numbers and you'll talk to somebody from either NYPD's Intelligence Division or New York State Police version of that, and they can guide you through it. When you're making a report, you want to describe specifically what you observed, including who or what you saw, when you saw it, where it occurred, and why it's suspicious. We advise you to be diligent. If you see something, say something, and then we want you to tell us and tell CSS. In fact, in the light of current events, CSI has created a dedicated email address. It's up on the screen there. Report suspicious activity at CSI-NY.org. Even if you forget that, you can always get onto our website. It'll be on our website too, CSI-NY.org. It's real easy. Again, call NYPD or the appropriate law enforcement first to report suspicious activity. If anything imminently concerning occurs in and around your institution, of course, call 911 911 immediately. And now I'll turn it over to the next speaker, who I think is my good friend and colleague, Chuck Berkowitz.
Turning things over to CSS, Community Security Service. CSI is great partners. We couldn't do all that we do without this amazing partnership. So, Chuck Berkowitz, Ben Sperling, over to you guys.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Terry. On this slide here, you have the pipelines of CSS programs from campus to synagogue. Briefly, for those who may not know about CSS, CSS is a national organization whose mission is to protect Jewish life and the Jewish way of life. We were founded on a simple principle, powerful idea that protecting Jewish life starts with Jews taking ownership of our own security. We've currently trained over 6,000 volunteers across the United States, and we have offices in New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, and L.A. As Mitch stated, we have an amazing partnership with CSI in New York. Nationally, we work with SCN, ADL, and Jewish federations. We focus on the rhythm of Jewish life because our added value in the Jewish communal security world is we provide the boots on the ground. We don't protect buildings. We protect the people inside of them during their most vulnerable and joyous moments. We turn congregants from passive bystanders into proactive protectors. Some ask why we don't just hire more guards. Paid guards in law enforcement are a great tool, but volunteers bring something that money can't buy. Volunteers are a force multiplier for our community security. As a volunteer, you know who belongs. You know that Mr. Levy always comes in the side door, and you notice when a stranger is lingering in a way that doesn't fit the norm. As a volunteer, you have skin in the game. It's your children, your parents, your friends inside praying or at an event. This creates a higher standard of vigilance. You have the ability to greet someone warmly while simultaneously assessing their behavior and intent. Given the current global situation that's going on in Purim coming up tomorrow, we've given extra guidance to our volunteers. So our volunteers already understand security doesn't start at the door. It starts at the corner of the block or the parking lot. Our volunteers monitor the ingress and the egress. They watch the flow of traffic prior to an event, prior to a service, and as that event or service is ending. They're looking for someone loitering without a clear purpose or a vehicle that's circling the block reportedly. Our volunteers are taught how to conduct a thorough search and sweep of the interior and exterior before the event starts. Our volunteers are a force enhancement, not a replacement for law enforcement and paid security. Our goal is to ensure that every Jew can celebrate, gather, and worship safely. Security is a shared responsibility. I'm now going to hand it off to my colleague, Ben Sperling, who will discuss our Rome program.
Thank you, Chuck. So I'm Ben Sperling, Associate Director for New York City for CSS. So I run our Rome program in New York. The CSS Rome is the Event Security and Patrol Division of CSS. We build off the synagogue model that Chuck just talked about. So we believe that members of the community are best able to detect the things that don't belong. Our volunteers receive a certain number of hours of training in both security theory, like how to spot suspicious activity, emergency response, and real-world scenarios, and basic instruction in combatives. Though we do stress that we are an eyes and ears force, and our graduates are eligible for ongoing training and weekly Krav Maga classes. So we protect Jewish events large and small. We work with different partners and agencies. We can serve as primary for smaller events without the resources for commercial security, but we're also an excellent value add when we work alongside commercial security partners and law enforcement. We don't require a background in security, but we do have a thorough screening process. So we just ask that volunteers have a demonstrable connection to the community, are physically capable enough for the training, have the availability for the training, and then are also able to commit to working to like 1 to 2 event shifts per month. Rome doesn't require participants to belong to any synagogue or congregation, and so we're not made up exclusively of unaffiliated Jews, but we found that this program is it's very attractive to community members who don't have like a home base, so to speak. We're also very excited to roll out our new vehicle patrol initiative. So, in addition to supporting events, the mobile patrol unit is going to allow us to extend our perimeter security for CSS synagogues, and it also provides an extra layer of deterrence and early detection in neighborhoods that have large concentrations of Jewish populations. Our volunteers are very excited about this, so we're already getting a really positive response. And it also is going to give us the capability to more rapidly respond to incidents in our areas of responsibility. And those patrols are staffed primarily by Rome volunteers. We're forming academy classes pretty regularly, so anybody who's interested should visit our website, check us out, find out more about Rome, and submit their application and go from there. And that's what I've got. So thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Ben. And if you're a Manhattan-based institution, what Ben talked about and having these vehicular patrols, this is news, something that CSI and CSS are doing together. We're excited about this, early stages, but you should see some of those vehicles out tomorrow for Purim, and we're looking to enhance this initiative with more volunteers and more vehicles. So stand by for more on that front. Now we're going to turn to detecting hostile surveillance. You heard a little bit about the importance of this from Dr. Levitt, as well as from Terry, but Pat Regan is going to walk you through it in some greater detail and nuance, so you might pick up something if you know what you're looking for. Pat?
Thank you, Mitch. When we talk about detecting hostile surveillance, it's not unrelated to suspicious behavior and pre-event indicators. Anything from the person pacing back and forth before the DC shooting, people saw him in the street, to something you might remember somebody taking pictures or sitting in your parking lot from months ago. It's all relevant, and really the bottom line is detecting things that are off. So some of the things that happen day to day that you might not think a lot of, that you should look at maybe from a different angle when you're thinking about pre-event surveillance, are certainly probing. Somebody trying to get in, testing your screening procedures, or they might see if the back door is open. They might innocently feel like they're showing up asking questions, either off hours or during business hours, seeing how far they can get in the building. They may not be threatening at all, but these are things to look at with a critical eye. It could be somebody walking by your facility, taking note of a building that's really not that interesting, looking at things that people don't ordinarily look at, perhaps windows, perhaps side doors. It can be very subtle, someone that just sees something, and it's so important. If it doesn't look right to you, it's probably not right. If you see a vehicle that might drive by slowly or pull up on the curb for even a brief period, it's important to take note of that vehicle's license plate number or any description that you can get. Even vehicles that you see parked in front of your facility, parked in a no parking zone, parked for what seems like an inordinate amount of time. Again, what's consistent for the area around your institution. Anything that isn't consistent with that is really noteworthy. It's so important to take note of these things that in the past you might have dismissed as nothing. If somebody calls either phone, email, in person, asking questions, you typically get questions, whether you run a day school or a Sunday school services. People ask simple questions about what time things start. When these questions start to feel a little off, maybe too specific about numbers of people, how they get in and out, or anything, again, that doesn't feel right, these questions are a way to find out more about your institution to decide whether or not it's an attractive target for an attack. You also have to be wary of testing. When you get a bomb threat, perhaps a fire alarm is pulled, some other disturbance is caused outside or even inside your institution, people may be observing to see what the response is. How seriously do you take it? Where do people go? And it's important, if you have something like that happens, to look beyond just what's occurring to you, beyond the bomb threat, beyond simply following procedures for a fire drill, and see if you do see someone watching. People will also look to detect your patterns. Maybe somebody you see for a few days outside that doesn't seem threatening or abnormal at all. It might be at a bus stop who's just there, who's watching to see, however, when people come and go. When is the back door left prop open for someone to go outside and smoke or retrieve something from their car? What are the times where the door might be propped open at the beginning of services where there are no screeners, where they can walk right in? It's important to look for people who might be out trying to detect patterns. Same thing with photos. A lot of times people conducting surveillance looking at perhaps door locks. They could be from close or from afar, or taking pictures of features of a building that aren't really the interesting features of a building. Again, I can't stress enough looking for anything that is noteworthy or doesn't feel right to you. The same thing could happen during a legitimate visit. There have been a number of cases of attacks where, whether it be in a house of worship or elsewhere, where the attacker visited that institution a number of times prior to the attack. When somebody is making a legitimate visit and they're there and something doesn't seems off, doesn't feel right, it's really critically important that you say something. Take note of who the person is. It also highlights the real need to identify everyone who comes into your institution. However you can do it, it's so important to remember who was there, and if the person made you feel off, to make sure you follow up. The last thing that I'll talk about relative to what surveillance might look like is a proxy. You've heard that referred to before, but someone not acting on their own behalf, and it doesn't have to be sophisticated. In fact, it may very well not be. And that person's actions will most likely be a little bit more awkward. Their questions might not make as much sense and might not be as fluid. And so even their pre-event indicators, if they're not acting on their own behalf, will be a little bit different than someone who has thought through this specific institution and this specific action. Some of the things that you might see, you might want to look out for are things like people in a crowd. A crowd is doing one thing. They might be watching something. They might be moving in a direction, but someone who's not, someone who's looking the other way, someone who just is not going with the flow, if you will. It's certainly something noteworthy. You might see people blending into another group of people that look official, in sort of a organized, disorganized group that might be easy to blend into. It might be security employees who were just hired and maybe not vetted, where they don't know each other. They don't come from a group. It's important, again, if something seems off, someone seems out of place, to take note of that. You might also consider during services, the people who are someone who is there sitting, who's just taking note of things that aren't typical to take note of, whether it's doors, whether it's people coming and going, maybe overpaying attention to security. But again, everybody's paying attention and they may be looking another way. And during services, the final might be someone who's just not familiar with what's going on. They don't know when to stand or sit or follow the cues of the service, or the normal ebb and flow of whether it's a JCC or another institution. It's important to note when something feels out of place. We use the example of the person, the vehicle attacker at Chabad headquarters, who had been there a number of days before. He didn't threaten anyone, but people did report that he felt off. And it's just critically important to recognize those people. As an illustration of that, this is one of the Boston Marathon bombers. You could make a case for him looking different, certainly suspicious. And it's an example of how people can blend into a crowd and with tragic consequences if nobody says anything. A suspicious vehicle, again, can look like anything. But really knowing what's ordinary and looking for the out of the ordinary. A car parked in a place that doesn't make sense in a parking lot, only two vehicles, and pulls up next to another one, perhaps a van in an area where it just doesn't make sense. Or a car parked in a no parking zone because that's where they can get the best vantage point, or they might want to take pictures, so that's how they best see your institution. Or they want to get close, and that's the best place they can park. And as you could see, there's a picture of the 2010 Times Square bomb that didn't actually ignite to the extent that they wanted it to, but again, started out as a car simply parked on the street with a bunch of other cars. And it highlights the significance of making sure you report anything suspicious. And sometimes it feels funny if you want to make a call and you don't know what exactly you're reporting because it's your instinct that made you call. You can always call your CSI regional security director, and we'll guide you through the appropriate venue for your call and help you make it if you don't know what to do with something that doesn't feel quite right. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Lerone Philby.
Great. Thanks so much, Pat. Appreciate that. Lerone, our Senior Regional Security Director for Long Island, is going to walk you through daily security practices. And this is really, what can you do on a daily basis to enhance your own security? Over to you, Lerone.
Thank you, Mitch. As Mitch mentioned, we're going to talk about what can we do or even what can we do better on a daily basis to enhance our security around our facility. So security sweeps, we're going to talk a little bit. Unfortunately, we cannot cover all what we can do to enhance our security in 20 minutes of conversation. But we will focus on the following items. First one is security sweep, access control, proper use of our security technology. We're going to touch a bit of security guards and emergency plan. So let's talk a little bit about security sweep. So first of all, we talk and preach a lot about vigilance and awareness. Terry talked about it. You just heard from Pat. And I will try to put it on a practice and really actions that we can take and do on the ground. And I'm talking about conducting a security sweep at your facility. And this is something anyone can. What is a sweep? A sweep, a security sweep, is actually an intentional look, a walk around the facility, around your building, around your campus, to identify suspicious people and objects. We're intentionally focusing on looking for those suspicious indicators that Pat just talked about, and with the state of mind that Terry talked about, looking for the suspicious people and looking for suspicious objects. When can we do it? Anytime. The more is better. But of course, I can point of critical time. The critical times are before opening hours, before people come to the program, to the building, to the facility, before and even during outdoor activities, before departure, before the end of the program. We are looking for those indicators, and after we close in the facility. How do we do it? So I know I said it's a walk. It's very easy to do a walk, but the real way to do it, the better way, is actually while you're walking, taking those deliberate stands and look. Let's say you go out of the building, out of your main entrance door, your main exit door, and you stand, you deliberately stand, and you look from right to left, slowly, looking for those indicators, looking what is different in your environment, and you're intentionally looking for those suspicious signs. When we walk, we don't really concentrate in looking. So you have to take those deliberate standpoint. And you do it when you go out of the building, you go to the corner, you do it again. You go to the other corner, you do it again. If you can go to the opposite side of the building, you go to the opposite side of the building and looking at your building. Once again, you deliberately stand and taking that look, that intentional look. Like Pat mentioned, you go to those places that can be used to provide cover for surveillance, this parking lot that you know, the bus station, the coffee shop across the street. If there's a wooded area that is looking at your facility, you go and take a look at those places. It's very important that while you do that, you keep your own safety in mind, especially if you're not a security guard and you're not armed. So have a radio with you, make sure you're in communication with someone else inside the facility. And if you see something suspicious, don't engage, report, as was mentioned by Terry. And of course, document it. Take a picture, report to the police, report to your security, report internal people inside the facility, staff members, and of course, report to CSI. I want to mention that our Intel desk is seeing the big picture. You might see this blue van in the parking lot. You see it on Monday, you're going to see it tomorrow. But it's totally different if that blue van was only in your place on Monday, but if it was on Thursday, we're going to see that it's been in other 10 places. We all understand that it's a totally different scenario. And this is exactly what our Intel desk is doing, is collecting that information, connecting the data. Thank God we have very intelligent people sitting there and can really raise the flag as they did before to point those suspicious activities. Who can do it? Anyone, anyone. The best, of course, is an armed security guard or security guard. Second, you heard from Chuck about volunteers. Everybody can be trained and volunteer. Staff members can do it. Congregants can do it. Make it a hobby. Make it part of your routine. I want to emphasize, this is our opportunity to disrupt the attack. Before it's even begin, this, if you see someone and you took a picture, that act can discard him from taking action against your facility. And if you report that, and we report it to the law enforcement, and we managed to, by getting his license plate, catch the guy, then we really saved the day. Let's talk a little bit about access control. So one way in, it's very important to lock all the perimeter doors. We often, as RSDs, we conduct risk assessment at facilities, and we see propped open doors. And this is a common use in many facilities. Don't do it. Don't do it ever, but especially in these sensitive times, don't do it. Designate one entrance to the facility, lock it and monitor it. The bottom line is that only identified people we know or been vetted can be allowed entrance to the facility. Now, I want to mention a few more points. The first one is new members. This is a very sensitive time, and one of the ways that somebody can try to either conduct an attack at your facility or gather information is by joining the congregation, joining your organization. Take extra caution when you're admitting new members, conduct a remote phone, Zoom interviews, and the most importantly, ask for references. He has to be affiliated somehow. No walk-ins. Walk-ins, I remind you, we talked about it, Colorville, Texas, January 2022. The rabbi wanted to be nice and help someone in a cold day and give him a cup of tea. It's ended in 11 hours of hostage situation. So I don't tell you don't be nice on your private life, not when you're in the synagogue, okay? Be more vigilant. Nobody should walk in, use your bathroom. Another point, another soft point is tailgating and piggybacks. We are nice. Our nature is, especially in New York, we hold the door for someone. It's not happening in Israel, by the way. Don't expect if you're going to Israel. It's a very New York thing. We hold the door. Not today. Make sure who is behind you. Avoid from letting people that you don't know to the facility. Beware of tailgating. We talked about volunteers. Choose the one. You can choose a volunteer without being trained by CSS. It's a concentrated effort for these coming days. Choose the people that knows everyone in every facility. There's the one that knows everyone, the one that knows the building, and can stand in the entrance and screen the people coming into the building. I'm sure we can find those people, and they allocate the time, especially in these sensitive days that are coming. Let's talk a little bit about our technology. And the first thing about technology, let's make sure that all of our equipment is working properly. Our video surveillance system. So I will try to give a few tips on how to use it better. Most of our facilities are equipped with a video surveillance system, but nobody watch the cameras. Nobody watch the screen. So if you can designate someone to watch the screen during service, during operation hours, I go to a facility and I see a TV screen that shows 20 cameras. That's the good place. Sometimes I see 48 cameras. So you can imagine how it looks like. Nobody can watch 20 cameras on one screen. Choose the most important sensitive 4 to 6 cameras maximum. Concentrate on the cameras, the perimeter, the cameras that show outside doors and route access routes into the building, to the facility, and watch them. Let the technology do the work for you. A lot of the systems can be configured to give you automatic alerts in sensitive areas. So you mark a spot, you mark a zone, and once somebody go into this zone, you get an alert. It can be a flag popping out on your screen, a sign, a sound. Make the technology work for you, so you don't have to concentrate at the screen all the time. Regarding alarms, burglary alarms, make sure, of course, all the sensors are working properly. And a very important feature is a day alarm. A day alarm component is a very important feature that can actually give you an indication if there's an open perimeter door during operation hours. And we talked about propped open door. Lights, keep them on during the night, interior lights, outdoor lights, perimeter lights, and communication. We're talking about PA system or any type of communication you have in the building, radios. Make sure it's worked properly. Make sure the PA system can be heard all around the campus. Sometimes there's a weak spot mostly outside of the building, and you have to compensate for that. And the most importantly, prepare clear messages for different scenarios. So you don't have to improvise. Prepare everything in advance. Let's talk a little bit about security guards. My belief is vigilance and visibility makes deterrent. And this is what we want to create in these sensitive times. There's always the discussion contemplating, do we need the exposed uniformed guards or plainclothes guards? Now, this is my belief. If you have 2 guards, then yes, they should be on uniform, they should be visible, active, vigilant, create that kind of deterrent. If you have 5 guards, yes, maybe one of them can be go on plainclothes and try undercover to detect surveillance. But if you have 2 and small number of guards, make them visible. This is the time to be deterred, to show that we are here, we are ready, we are vigilant, and nobody can surprise us. This is what we want to show somebody that is trying to gather information about us. Let's talk a little bit about schedule. Have them on site in a minimum of an hour before operating hours. They need time to get briefed. They need time to do the security sweep that we talked about, and be on post at least 15 minutes before people coming into the building. Regarding post orders, the post order should address the role of the guard, both in routine, when everything is calm, and in an emergency situation. For example, if I'm briefing a guard, I can tell him, listen, I hired you to stand at the entrance to the building, screen the people that come into the building, and in case of an active threat, act to eliminate the threat. If we have more than 1 guard, then I can tell 1 guard to act, and maybe the other guard should stay in the entrance and prevent the attacker to come into the building. But we have to address that issue and give them set of expectation, instruction, post orders, what we wanted to do when everything is calm in routine, and what is their role in case of emergency. Of course, I expect that the guards will be familiar with the facility, with the layout, familiar with the security protocol and the emergency plan. And if it's a new thing, or if you haven't done it before, inform your local police department that you have armed guard on premises.
And it's worth noting that CSI has created protocols for the post orders on the CSI website. There's a link. If you're unsure how to manage your guards, and we hear that from institutions, they hired a guard company, they're not sure how to manage them. This can give you some basic ideas on how you should be directing them, so they're doing the things that you want them to do, and are attentive to the needs of your institution.
Mitch, I will add to that we have webinars, both and full presentation. We're only touching a few things now. We have full presentation regarding daily security practice, regarding emergency plan. We talked about it before. It's all record. You can find the materials on our website. I will end up with a emergency plan. So when I talk about emergency plan, it's all based on run, hide, fight. This is how our training, the system, the methodology that our system, that our training is based upon. And this is only on a nutshell. So we'll talk about mostly two different situations on an emergency plan. You have to have an emergency plan, prepare an emergency plan. The first time is a lockdown. What the operational outcome of hiding is actually a lockdown. And in every situation like that, we have to decide of two things. How do we announce the situation, and what do we do in each situation? So how do we tell people of the situation? Some people can use the PA system. Maybe there's another signals. I see in facilities some blue light strobes. Any kind of signal that we choose, a clear signal that we tell everybody, yes, we have go to lockdown. If you're using the PA system, as we talked before, have a clear message. Repeat the message at least 3 times. I recommend don't use code. You don't tell the members of civilian code yellow. Nobody in 3 months remember what is code yellow and what is code blue. So say it's simply go to lockdown. And then what do we do? The recommendation is, of course, go to designated safe rooms, rooms that can be secured from the inside. You have to pre-designated, everybody has to know the location of this room. And when you're inside the room, you barricade the door, you shut down the curtains, you lie on the floor, you stay quiet, you turn off the light, and you call 911. We saw people that are using that simple lockdown technique and go to the safe room, that saves lives. The other scenario that we need to talk about is what if you have to leave the building? Let's say there's a bomb threat. A real bomb threat. There's a suspicious device, object inside the building, and we have to evacuate the building. So first of all, how do we tell? How do we announce the situation? And we don't recommend to use the fire. Fire is for fire. We distinguish between those two situations. Again, you can use the PA system, a predetermined message, a clear message, but you also have to decide where to go. You have to decide of a meeting point. Where do we meet? Where all the congregants, where are the members of the program, the synagogue, the JCC, where do we go when we leave the building? Where do we meet? So we can be accountable and see that everybody are present. And of course, how do we get there? What is our evacuation route? Another critical point, especially in this time of the year, we have to maintain those exit routes. We have to maintain those corridors. We see a lot of the time that our corridors are being blocked by used as storage, especially in this time, door can be frozen, especially lock can be frozen, and the door can be stuck. We can find ourselves trying to open the door and there's a pile of snow behind. So maintain clear routes and choose a meeting point. That was my part. Thank you and happy Purim and be vigilant.
Great. Thanks so much, Liron. I think that leads us right into our next topic, which is handling suspicious mail and packages. And Jim Comstock, our Southwest Connecticut Regional Security Director, is going to walk us through best practices when you get something in the mail that you're unfamiliar with or concerned about. Over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. So we'll jump right into this. I just want to touch on what Laurent said. The best practice is to have some type of policy and procedure in place ahead of time, how you're going to deal with the suspicious packages as well as unintended bags, all right? Real quickly, we're going to talk about next 5 minutes is packages, letter bomb considerations. what you should be looking for, especially in these day and ages. These are just only indicators, not they should raise a red flag for you if you see anything like this I'm about to present, right? A letter and a package bomb may exhibit none, some, or all of these characteristics. Explosive devices may be shipped via any possible means, including FedEx, UPS, courier delivery, or the regular mail system. And obviously, for security and liability operational reasons, CSI always recommends that staff not have personal packages delivered, such as Amazon packages, to your place of work, your place of worship, schools, JCCs, and so forth. Please have these personal items delivered to your home. This way, it doesn't cause chaos and more anxiety for our locations. Again, these are red flags. Excessive security material, as you can see, the package like here has excessive tape on it, maybe an attempt to contain components or even prevent device from opening and functioning. Materials such as tape, strings, etc. These are the devices that would cause a red alert. Obviously, no return address. That's a red flag. Sender trying to conceal his identity may also want to use a false address or a real address or a person of his organization that's known to the victim. Excessive postage as well. Sender wants to ensure sufficient postage, doesn't want to have any contact with anybody inside, like say a clerk or a postal clerk, to mail something. Thank God the United States Postal Service has done away with this. You can't really, it's very hard to do this now, but you may see this some days. Restrictive markings such as confidential, personal. This is the way the bomber wants to make sure it's intended for the intended target, the recipient. He doesn't want anybody else to open it. So these are also red flags. Visual distractions such as terms such as limited offer, must open, fragile, handle with care, rush. These are all, again, red flags, what to look for if you receive something in the mail. Oily stains, any type of discoloration you would see on a package or a particular odor that you recognize may smell like diesel fuel or gasoline or peroxide. These things that are very common to the common knowledge here. Many explosives have oily textures and components that may leak through wrappers. See something like this is definitely a red flag, something you want to isolate and call your local agencies. Incorrect titles shows use of outdated information. Possibly a bomber went on the internet and they want to research something about a local institution. Maybe the information on the internet is not up to date and they're using these outdated sources. A lack of familiarity is also for a recipient. Titles but no names may indicate a lack of knowledge for the recipient as well. These are, again, red flags. All right, this gets us into our unintended versus suspicious items. We talk about unintended bags versus suspicious items. In my career, everybody calls 911. They report everything is suspicious. Everything's suspicious to the common caller. But this is a good way, a good acronym to use whether or not you want to decide it's either a suspicious item or an unintended bag. Criminals and terrorists sometimes conceal and provide explosive devices, IEDs, in backpacks, suitcases, so forth, as common items. Okay, use the acronym HOT. HOT, H is hidden. Is something placed in out of sight? It appears that it's purposely placed there out of the hidden area. Is it obvious, suspicious? Does it has obvious components in it that you would see normally on an IED, an antenna coming out of the bag or something like that? And then T, not typical. Is it out of a place of a location potentially related to the threat? Well, go back one side. So
Yes,
when you're looking at the HOT and you decide if it's HOT, if it's not hot, obviously you're going to treat it with caution. That becomes an unattended bag. It's something that's normally in the environment. Try to determine the owner. A good way to try to determine the owner is interview your guests, interview your employees, interview your staff, okay? And then also look at your closed circuit monitors, your security TVs, to see whether or not you can see who dropped it or possibly placed that. Could be just a visitor that dropped something. But if it is hot, you're going to go into what we call our acronym of RAIN. And RAIN is simply recognizing the indicators of a suspected explosive device. We've already talked about that, right? Avoid the area. Start moving people away from the area. Isolate the suspected item. Okay, by isolating, we want to redirect pedestrian traffic as well as vehicle traffic away from the suspected item. Okay, and the N stands for notify appropriate emergency services. That is notifying your local PD, your local emergency services in your area so that they can respond and deal with it appropriately. As I go back to what everybody says, the entire program, if you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to report it. Don't assume someone else is reporting it, right? And obviously, always refer back to your policies and procedures. And if you don't have one, please, my other counterpart has said in the past, link up with one of your CSI regional security directors, and we can make that happen for you. Again, thank you for your time. That's all I think I have.
great. Thanks, Jim. We're now going to pivot to anonymous bomb threats. As we know, the last few years have seen these swatting campaigns go on, where the idea is to try and get law enforcement to interrupt what's going on at one of your locations. But as you've heard before, evacuating isn't necessarily always the right thing to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Ethan Ehrlich, our Senior Regional Security Director for Rockland County.
Thanks, Mitch. Good evening, everyone. We're going to be talking about bomb threats, and this is something that we've seen, unfortunately, in large scale within our area, the New York City and Connecticut area, which is bomb threats to Jewish institutions. Specifically, we've seen a pattern during high holiday services, but we've also seen them at other Jewish locations throughout the year. According to the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Bombing Prevention, there were 4,500 bomb threats in the U.S. from 2012 to 2017 that were reported to federal authorities. In the last few years in the New York area, we've seen 243 bomb threats against Jewish institutions in CSI's area of coverage since October 7th. And immediately preceding the attacks on October 7th, we saw a couple hundred bomb threats in the high holidays immediately preceding that. So if we're talking about the type of threat being a higher probability than some of the other things that we've looked at, again, the vast majority of these bomb threat incidents do not involve real or even suspicious or hoax devices. However, each threat must be treated seriously and evaluated individually. We'll get into some detail about how we evaluate these threats. And for all these things, I can't repeat this enough, coordination with local law enforcement is critical. Evacuation should not be conducted without law enforcement on scene unless there's an actual imminent threat, a suspicious device. Evacuation routes and location must be secured by law enforcement prior to evacuation. I wish I could highlight this and underline these sentences a few times, because we've seen time and time again, and I'm speaking for myself in my law enforcement career. I know from speaking to Jim about his career in a major bomb squad in an urban area. We've seen time and time again, institutions will evacuate as a knee-jerk reaction to just about any type of bomb threat. So we'll get into how these should be evaluated. But again, evacuation should not be the knee-jerk reflex reaction when bomb threat is received, and certainly not done before law enforcement is on scene. Let's talk about the impacts of bomb threats and why we have been targeted as a community, why we've been targeted with this type of threat. So bomb threats cause fear and panic. They disrupt operations, whether it's normal school operations or, as I mentioned before, high holiday services or Shabbat services. They can cause a financial strain, right? If you're running a business, let's say a commercial enterprise, and you have to close down because of bomb threats, or you're running a JCC, you have to evacuate people or shut down because of bomb threats, right? That's going to cause a financial strain. People are not going to want to shop there. They might not want to go to the gym at your institution, and they might not feel comfortable bringing their children or their family members to a synagogue like that. If we look at these impacts, we also understand why bad actors are going to use this tactic against us, right? These are the tactics that terrorists use. They want to cause fear and panic, have the economic impact, and they have determined over the last few years that the bomb threat is a low cost and lower risk tactic for them to use. We're going to talk briefly about evaluating bomb threats. Obviously, there's more to it than we're going to mention in the next few minutes. But if your institution receives a bomb threat, take notes, and the bomb threat, your specific bomb threat, is going to be evaluated on the totality of the circumstances. I'll just briefly mention a few of the things that we mean when we say totality of the circumstances. How realistic is it? How plausible is it that there's a bomb where, let's say, a caller says it was? Or if you received this as an email or a fax, or was this written on a wall, right? As we've seen with some of the school incidents, how long has it been there? Was this fax received several days ago? Was an email that was sent to dozens of people? In some of the cases that we have seen, emails were sent to dozens of institutions at the same time, And how vague is it? How specific is it? Again, how realistic is it? Based on the totality of the circumstances, including some of the factors that I just mentioned, that bomb threat is going to be categorized as a low, medium, or high risk type of threat. And then depending on that type of threat, if it's assessed to be low, medium, or high risk, our response is going to be directed by that. And our response could be a partial search, partial or full lockdown, partial or full evacuation, depending on the assessed risk. And that's going to be done in coordination with local law enforcement. Okay, moving on to recommendations for institutions. As I mentioned, our institutions in the New York area and Connecticut have received a lot of bomb threats in the last 3-4 years. So we need to be prepared for them. We need to have a plan, a bomb threat management plan, because this is what we would call a high probability. So that your bomb threat plan should be part of your overall security plan. Reach out to us or your local Federation security director if you're outside of our area for further assistance. Recently, Jim Comstock and I gave a training in partnership with the Office for Bombing Prevention about bomb threat management, and we will be conducting future training. Reach out to us if you have specific questions about that. And another resource for information about bomb threats in general would be from CISA's Physical Security Bombing Prevention Program with the link that's there. That's the end of my presentation. I'll stand by if there are questions at the end.
Great. Thanks, Ethan. We're just about wrapping up now. We're just going to cover a couple more topics and we'll leave a few minutes for Q&A. We're going to turn to Seth Goodstein, our Senior Regional Security Director for Queens. Just, we heard from Matt Levitt about his concerns, given that we're very close to Purim. Seth, over to you to just walk through some of those suggested highlighted behavioral changes.
Thank you, Mitch. Good evening, everyone. Tomorrow night is the holiday of Purim starts. Many of you will be having events at your synagogues. Let's look at what you could do to make these events more secure. So before the event, a pre-event meeting should be held. Key personnel at your facility should meet to discuss security for the event. Security committee, lay leadership, event coordinators, etc. It's still not too late to have a call or meet to discuss for tomorrow. Make sure you have everything in order and all are on the same page. Notify local law enforcement and CSI. Make sure you communicate the date of your event and ask for coverage from your local precinct or department. Purim is tomorrow, so if you haven't done this already, it might be difficult for law enforcement to cover exclusively. However, making them aware of the event, the time it's occurring, the number of attendees, and the type of program is important. At a minimum, most departments can provide special attention visits to the location. Notifying CSI allows our intel desk to monitor your event for any online postings of concern. This is the time for you to use your emergency response plans and procedures. Having the active threat plan, evacuation, bomb threat plan, fire are among a few of the examples. If you don't have any plans, no problem, you can create them. This might not happen before Purim tomorrow, so it's important to have something preliminarily in place for tomorrow, so at least key coordinators and security personnel will know what to do. For tomorrow, if you don't have existing plans, keep it simple. Formulate a plan for what you will do if there is a threat at the location. Where do we go if there's a threat? How do we protect the attendees? Remember, we want to reduce target availability for an attacker, and we want to buy time until law enforcement can arrive. Ideally, we want to keep the threat on the exterior of the building, and that's where the police can address it. Are our doors locked for the event? Hiring security. Also, this might be too late at this point. However, you still might be able to arrange for it if you start early tomorrow morning. Do you have security guards already planned for your event? Great. Ensure they know what their assignment is and have clear direction on screening attendees, and most importantly, what to do if there is a threat. Commonly called post orders that we mentioned by my colleagues prior, it's important for guards to be given clear directions on what they're supposed to be doing. Where will they be posted? Do you have a list of attendees for the guards? Will you have volunteer members like CSS or others help checking people in and screening? What do the guards do if there's a threat? Do you have that active threat plan, that bomb threat plan, and evacuation plan, among others? Make sure your cameras are working before the event. Is there availability for key personnel to monitor those cameras? Any other technology should be checked in advance as well, such as metal detectors, electronic access control, duress buttons, and our radios, to name a few. On the day of the event, before the event begins, conduct a briefing with security and volunteers. Explain how everything will be coordinated for the event and do a walkthrough. Check the interior and the perimeter of the property before the event and before people arrive. Are any doors ajar? Any suspicious people around the property? Any suspicious packages? And if any of these, among others, are answered yes, what is your plan and your procedure to address it? Deploy your security personnel and volunteers to their assigned posts. Screening of guests. Who's going to take on this role? Volunteers, paid security personnel? What criteria will they use to decide who to allow or deny entry to? How will you deal with an irate person that gets denied? Notify your membership ahead of the event to allow more time and be patient when they arrive. This can help avoid problems. Do you have a list of attendees that you can give to your screeners? Hopefully you did a pre-registration. No unauthorized person should be able to come into your facility. There is added concern of someone wearing a mask due to this holiday. Don't hesitate to ask someone to remove their mask to ensure proper identification. How will you be able to communicate with key stakeholders during the event? How will you communicate with your security? Do you have handheld radios? Will you have key decision makers strategically located to assist and help decide who to admit to the event? Or to direct occupants in an emergency. Maintain vigilance throughout the entire event. Just because the event started and all registered guests are admitted doesn't mean you don't need to still cover the doors. Maintain the perimeter of your building. Things can change at any time and you need to be prepared for any eventuality. After the event, conduct a review on how everything worked. What was great? What needs improvement for the next event? What can we do differently? And after action debriefing, while everyone's memory is fresh, is very important. If you can't do it on the day of, then definitely within the next few days after the event. Keep in mind that your CSI Regional Security Director can help you with event planning in advance of all your events. The more advance notice, the easier it will be to plan. With that, I want to wish all of you a Hag Purim Sameach, a happy and safe Purim holiday. Mitch?
Thanks so much, Seth. I think you really pulled a lot of the commentary that we had all together so it could be focused on tomorrow, which is, keymost, uppermost in our mind. So before we go to Q&A, let me turn to Brad Orsini, CSI's National Security Advisor, to talk about some upcoming webinars and training. Brad, over to you.
Mitch, thank you very much. And I'll be very quick, folks. I think everybody that spoke today has really set us up nice for two webinars. Actually, one webinar that is virtual and one in-person training. Let me talk first about March 5th, this Thursday. This is part of our monthly webinar series. This is our advanced run, hide, fight, a section of that. You are going to hear from a Colleyville survivor, and we are going to talk about our last resort and run, hide, fight. We are really talking about, and we will emphasize slides that you saw here, presentations that you heard from with Terry at the beginning on those levels of awareness. And really, again, as our fight portion, we're going to talk through with that Colleyville survivor, how was he in that yellow red zone up until that point that he made that decision to save his own life. Very important for our community. Again, it's our last resort, but we're going to really drill down on that fight portion for an hour. And our second training will be on March 16th from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is going to be in person at UJA, 130 East 59th Street in Manhattan. And really, we're very fortunate enough. This is the second part of our series, our monthly call on February. We had a Secret Service agent on. He is going to come back. We're going to talk about building a behavioral threat assessment team, give our community the tools to prevent targeted violence. We're going to hear from the Secret Service, and then we're going to build our own team. And finally, just as a reminder for everybody, we have 6 core courses that are available: that active threat, situational awareness, cybersecurity, very important right now, given in fact what's going on in Iran, de-escalation, that daily security best practice, and that TTX exercise, that facilitated discussion. Reach out to us if you need any training. Please sign up for these upcoming trainings. We will put those links in the chat. Mitch, back to you, sir.
Thanks so much, Brad. So at this point, we're done with our panel of experts, and we can see if there are any questions in the chat. Although we'll do this briefly because I know obviously we've gone getting a little bit later into Sunday night. We had one person asking, do we think that certain events like Purim are more vulnerable? Yes, for sure. We heard that from Dr. Matt Levitt. That he is concerned, and you do have the authority to ask someone to lift their mask and see who they are underneath that. Any information about colleges? We've passed on our threat bulletin to Hillels and Chabads and security directors at the 32 different colleges that we work with up and down the East Coast, but nothing specific that we've heard on that front. Do we have contact information for Connecticut to report suspicious activity? If you go to the CSI-NY website, you'll have Jim Comstock's email, and you could be in touch with Jim, and Jim can help you, direct you to the right location. And I see a similar question. We're listening in Connecticut. Any special email or phone number? So again, and maybe Jim, put your email in the chat for those in Connecticut. Let's see. I'm working a Purim event this week. Should I want people more who wears costumes? I can hide things easily. I think you should wand everyone really the same. But again, use your best judgment. If there's something that seems that out of the ordinary, then feel free to ask more questions. Bring somebody else over. Bring a volunteer. Bring your security person over, and they can help you, give you a second opinion on that person. I'm a rabbi. Walk-ins are welcome. Look, as we talked about earlier in Coleyville, the only thing you can control is access control. So if you have someone who's a potentially walk-in, we suggest the conversation happen with them outside before you let them into your facility. And we understand the challenges that makes, given the philosophical basis of our religion, but still, you can ask the questions outside before you let them inside. Motion and facial detection for important cameras, that's probably a longer conversation to have with a regional security director. We're doing a lot with the AI CCTV. The slide deck and the recording, yeah, we will have the recording. So please reach out to us and we can send you the recording. The recording will probably be on our website. If you specifically want the slides, please reach out to us. Same thing, recorded seminar sent to me. And the March 5th, Brad, that's a Zoom, right?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay,
a Zoom.
yes. March 5th is a Zoom. Rome on Long Island. Chuck Berkowitz, Ben Sperling, do you want to put a contact on there? So I'm not sure, is Rome on Long Island up and running yet?
It's running with synagogue volunteers handling events, but not official Rome as we've done it in the past. Excuse me, they're seasoned volunteers. And when we get the requests for events, we work with Lerone and we cover those.
Yeah, it's the best team.
It's a great team. Okay, Deanne Foreman, post the link for the registration for the trainings. If you have that available, maybe we'll put that up there. Either way, it should be on our website. And there is How Do I Bring Rome to Atlanta? Chuck Berkowitz, put your email in there so they can talk to you on that, or Ben. And then last one, do you recommend that congregants who are licensed to carry to do so? Look, CSI's perspective on this is unless you are training on a regular basis for a hostile situation, to not carry in synagogue because you could become a threat to yourself and the other congregants. Going to the shooting range once a month is insufficient. So there really is a high level of proficiency that you should have if you're going to bring a firearm to your location. So I think that runs through the questions. So I just wanted to note today is March 1st, and it is the 42nd year anniversary of the killing of Ari Halbertsam on the Brooklyn Bridge that happened in 1994. This happened in the wake of violence that broke out in the Middle East, and it just underscores the fact that what happens in the Middle East, we know doesn't stay in the Middle East, and is really the theme for our whole presentation today. We mourn Ari's passing and those other students who were shot on the Brooklyn Bridge, and we wanted to note that for everyone who's here. And last but not least, we just want to wish everybody a happy, healthy, and safe Purim. Thank you for spending this 90 minutes with us, with our panel of experts, and Hag Sameach.